There was as soon as a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the starting he became really awesome. He become fats and bunchy, as a rabbit ought to be, his coat become spotted brown and white, he had actual thread whiskers, and his ears have been covered with red sateen. On Christmas morning, while he sat wedged in the pinnacle of the boy's stocking, with a twig of holly among his paws, the effect was charming. There had been other matters within the stocking, nuts and oranges and a toy engine, and chocolate almonds and a clockwork mouse, however the rabbit became pretty the great of all. For at the least hours the boy cherished him, after which aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was an exquisite rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels, and within the excitement of looking at all the new affords the Velveteen Rabbit changed into forgotten. For a long time he lived inside the toy cupboard or at the nursery floor, and no one thought very a great deal approximately him. He was certainly shy, and being most effective made of velveteen, some of the greater pricey toys pretty snubbed him. The mechanical toys have been very advanced, and regarded down upon everyone else, they were full of modern ideas, and pretended they had been real. The version boat, who had lived through seasons and lost most of his paint, caught the tone from him and by no means overlooked an opportunity of relating to his rigging in technical terms. The rabbit could not declare to be a model of anything, for he didn't know that actual rabbits existed, he notioned they had been all stuffed with sawdust like himself, and he understood that sawdust turned into quite out of date and ought to by no means be referred to in present-day circles. Even Timothy, the jointed wood lion, who was made via the disabled squaddies, and ought to have had broader views, placed on airs and pretended he changed into related with government. Among them all the poor little rabbit changed into made to feel himself very insignificant and common, and the simplest man or woman who became kind to him at all turned into the paws and skin horse. The paws and skin horse had lived longer inside the nursery than any of the others. He became so vintage that his brown coat turned into bald in patches and showed the seams under, and maximum of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. He changed into smart, for he had visible a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and via and by way of destroy their mainsprings and pass away, and he knew that they have been best toys, and might never become anything else. For nursery magic may be very peculiar and splendid, and most effective the ones playthings which might be vintage and clever and experienced like the paws and skin horse recognize all approximately it. "What's real?" requested the rabbit someday, once they were lying aspect by aspect close to the nursery fender, before Nana got here to tidy the room. "Does it suggest having matters that buzz in you and a stick-out deal with?" "Real is not how you are made," stated the skin horse. "It is an aspect that takes place to you. Whilst a child loves you for a long, long term, no longer just to play with, however really loves you, you then end up actual." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Now and again," said the paws and skin horse, for he was constantly honest. "While you are real you don't thoughts being hurt." "Does it happen unexpectedly, like being wound up," he requested, "or bit by bit?" "It would not occur suddenly," said the skin horse. "You turn out to be. It takes a long term. This is why it doesn't often happen to folks who break effortlessly, or have sharp edges, or who've to be carefully saved. Generally, by the point you are actual, maximum of your hair has been cherished off and your eyes drop out and you get free inside the joints and very shabby. However, these items do not count number at all, due to the fact once you are actual you cannot be unsightly, except to people who don't apprehend." "I suppose you're real," stated the rabbit. And then he wanted he had now not said it, for he idea the skin horse is probably sensitive. But the skin horse only smiled. "The boy's uncle made me actual," he said. "That turned into a splendid many years ago, but once you're actual you cannot end up unreal again. It lasts for continually." The rabbit sighed. He idea it would be a long term before this magic referred to as actual occurred to him. He longed to become actual, to realize what it felt like, and yet the idea of developing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers became as an alternative unhappy. He wished that he could become it without those uncomfortable matters going on to him. Every so often, for no motive something, she went swooping about like a brilliant wind and hustled them away in cabinets. She called this tidying up, and the playthings all hated it, especially the tin ones. The rabbit failed to mind it so much, for wherever he became thrown he came down gentle. One evening, when the boy became going to bed, he couldn't locate the China dog that constantly slept with him. Nana became in a rush, and it turned into too much problem to seek for China puppies at bedtime, so she simply looked about her, and considering the fact that the toy cupboard door stood open, she made a swoop. "Right here," she said, "take your antique bunny. He's going to do to sleep with you," and she dragged the rabbit out by one ear, and